make sure things got done right.
All right, welcome to this week's edition of the Core Build Empires Association Zoom Clinic. Today we're going to talk about interference with a batter. There's a lot of different opportunities for a offensive player to interfere with the defense, and we're going to focus strictly on what they can do as a batter, not as a batter runner, not as a runner, just simply as a batter. So we have some varying rules that we play by in South Dakota as other states. NFHS, which is the National Federation of High Schools. We have the OBR, which is the official baseball rules, also commonly referred to as Major League Baseball rules. And we have American Legion rules, which play a pretty typical OBR rule set with some distinct modifications. So, out of respect for everyone's learning experience, keep yourself muted until you're ready to ask a question. If you have comments or additions on things that we missed, please add those in the chat so we can read those, and we'll address them as necessary. If you have questions or comments, you can also type those in. Jason Vaith is here with me today, and he's going to help keep an eye on that and make sure everybody gets into the call okay and make sure that we get any questions answered. My email's listed there at the bottom. Feel free to ask any questions you need, baseball related or sports officiating related in general. We'll make those happen. So, as you all know, the purpose of these clinics is to make umpires better in the area of Southeast South Dakota. South Dakota as a state, Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, Nebraska, anybody who wants to join. So if you have friends that you think would be interested in this or you think would benefit from this, feel free to invite them. We hold these every week during the season and really every week starting February. Prior to that, we host them occasionally, but the goal is to prepare umpires for the start of the season, which I believe in South Dakota is April 2nd, I want to say. If there are other topics you want to hear about, feel free to reach out to Jason, Jake, or myself, and we will try to see what we can do to add those to the agenda. Or if you're interested, let you set up a time to present. So when we have comes to batter interference or interference by the batter, we have three common different types. We have batter interference, and we have backswing or follow-through interference, which we'll get into the definitions of all of these. And we have thrown bat interference. So what is most common? Most common is batter interference. So Rule 512 in the NFHS rulebook says it is a delayed dead ball when there is interference by a batter, with the exception of 735 penalty. And that is when the batter interferes with the catcher attempting to play on a runner. If an out does not result at the end of the catcher's throw, the ball shall become dead immediately and the penalty enforced. So this is what we talk about when we talk about batter interference. Rule 735 says it is interference if the batter or the batter's out when they interfere with the catcher's fielding or throwing by leaning over home plate, stepping out of the batter's box, or making any other movement, including follow-through interference, which hinders the catcher's attempt to play on a runner, or by failing to make a reasonable effort to vacate a congested area when there is a throw to home plate and there is time for the batter to move away. So leaning over a home plate would be anytime the catcher goes to throw. If we are off balance and leaning and our body exits the batter's box in any form or fashion, whether it's elbow, head, shoulder, and interferes with the catcher's ability to field or throw. Stepping out of the batter's box in any direction that interferes with the catcher's ability to make a play, or making any other movement, including follow-through interference. So we have, in high school, we separate follow-through and backswing interference. Follow-through interference is a live ball violation that occurs when we complete our swing and contact the catcher, or thereby interfere with the catcher's ability to make a play. Backswing interference, due to per the NFHS rulebook, is during the batters bringing the bat to a hitting position. So think similar to golf, right? The backswing is the backwards part. That would be backswing interference in high school if we contact the catcher's mitt, helmet, whatever, and cause them to disorient or do anything. And that, for backswing interference, is simply time, and we're going to reset. We're going to allow the catcher to get their equipment reset, allow the batter to get back to reset. It's basically a do-over. And we would kill that immediately every time. Follow-through interference is when we complete our swing. Now, for the purposes of conversation and making sure we have rule terminology correct, OBR refers to backswing interference as the completion, the back portion of the batter's swing. So there is a difference, and we have to know the difference between NFHS and OBR, or Major League Baseball rules, because there are different penalties for each. So terminology is important, and it's really important when we talk to high school coaches about backswing versus follow-through interference, because when they look at the NFHS rulebook to determine if you got the call right, and they see that backswing interference is listed in the NFHS rulebook, and it's simply time, balls that immediately or reset, and you penalize their batter with an out because they committed follow-through interference, there is a difference. NCAA and OBR both have follow-through interference or backswing interference as a simple delayed dead ball. And then we would either have a runner retired on the initial throw, or we just count the strike and send everybody back. Questions on that so far? I don't like not being able to see all of your faces. I'm going to try to fix that real quick. There we go. Awesome. So what has to happen during the play in order for it to be batter interference? As umpires, we have to recognize red flags. The more in tune we are with the game and game awareness, the more red flags we're going to notice on situations, and it's going to prepare us for a potential play or a potential interference violation. So what happened on the previous pitch, right? Is the batter fainting like they're stealing? Is there potential for a delayed steal? Is the catcher looking, right? What's the catcher doing after the pitch? Are they receiving the pitch, looking at the pitcher, throwing it back to the pitcher? Are they looking or feinting or stepping towards a runner that has a big lead or a big secondary lead? Is the runner stealing, right? Those are red flags for batter interference. So that means what is the catcher doing that may lead to an attempted play for NFHS rules? Then we have a catcher making an attempt to retire a runner. And remember, this is making an attempt, not attempting to retire, which are two different definitions of actions. So if a catcher is making an attempt to retire a runner, do we have to throw? No, we don't have to have a throw. If that action by the batter prevents the catcher from, in our judgment, completing a throw, we can have interference at the high school level. And does it require contact? No. The rule mentions nothing about contact as far as a requirement for committing batter interference. So we have to notify or notice, identify red flags. We have to have a catcher who's making an attempt to retire a runner. And we have to have action that hinders a catcher's ability to attempt a play. If we fulfilled all three of those, and the batter has done something they are not allowed to do, we have batter interference. Now, the old adage, what happens if the batter doesn't leave the box? Who here thinks that if the batter can do anything they want inside the box and are protected? Awesome. Nobody. That's great. So we know that the batter is not protected in the box. The only time the batter would be protected is if they don't do anything, which means standing completely still. Right? The batter can stand still and would not be guilty of interference because if we go back, making any other movement, right? So leaning, stepping out of the box, or making any other movement, if we don't move, we can't be guilty of interference unless there's a play at the plate and we had time to move. And that time at the end of that is key. There is time for the batter to move away. So if we have a concrete backstop and it's a tight backstop and the ball hits the backstop and comes right back to the catcher, does the batter have time to move? Probably not. We would hope that they would move, and we as umpires can use verbal cues and preventative officiating to tell them or request them to move. But at the same point in time, they have to have time. There's an element of time that comes into play with a congested area at home plate. And there has to be an attempted play or attempted throw that direction. So, how many times in the last year, somebody answer this, how many times last season between spring and summer did we have a batter interference play?
I think I called 3 last year, Connor.
I've got 3 this spring already in college.
And that's because you're retired and you can go wherever you want.
Fair enough.
But it happens. Okay. On the flip side of that, how many times have you as an umpire identified one of these red flags and an action that violates the rule and not had interference? Because I feel like I see it a lot. And whether or not as umpires we identify that or we judge that they interfered, right? So I think we need to change the way we think about this rule. And our first play is going to show us this. But as umpires, we have to notice the action. We have to call the pitch, right? So we have to notice the action, the red flags. Okay. We have to call the pitch. We have to main focus through the action of the batter and then judge the batter's action hindering the catcher action. So we have a judgment of, yes, that's a swinging strike. We have to call that swinging strike. And then we have to identify the action and make a judgment call on the action of the batter and whether or not they interfered with the catcher. How many of you think that if the batter leaves the box and the catcher's throw is to the base, we don't have interference? Or how many of you used to think that? There's a few people on here that better say yes, because I know you're old enough to know the old philosophy. Because I do. Right? So it used to be no contact, no foul. True throw to the base. Right? And we've gone away from that a lot to where now it's pretty much automatic. And coaches will, well, there's no contact. You're right. There doesn't have to be contact. But if he's standing on the front of the plate, your catchers are going to short step, not put as much effort into the throw, not follow through with the throw, which all impacts or hinders their ability to make a play. And I had a discussion with the coach last year. I got one on each team. And the second time, the coach was like, he still made the throw. And I go, yeah, but if you ask your catcher, if that batter standing in the front alters his throw or hinders his throw, he's going to say yes. And he's like, well, I don't agree. And I was like, well, then call my assigner and tell him that. Send the play in. And his catcher comes out and I ask him, he goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. That's going to alter my throw. Okay, go tell your coach that. Save him some trouble. Right? But we have to stay in tune with everything going on. We can't, when the batter swings and we have runners, anytime we have a runner stealing, we have to stay square to the field of play. We can't turn and signal. We can't take our eyes off the play. We have to stay through the entire completion of the play before we turn and do anything. So notice the previous pitch action, call the pitch, maintain focus through the action, and then judge the batter's action and whether or not it hinders the catcher. So we talked about delayed dead ball. What nullifies the act of interference? Is the runner retired on the initial throw? Can anybody answer what is an initial throw? Or when does an initial throw end, maybe? Alan, you don't get a comment. Somebody take a stab at it.
Well, I guess just the first throw. If he's
Right.
throwing.
So the throw by the catcher. Now, let's say he overslides for second base, and then we apply a tag and he's out. Was that the initial throw?
No,
Why not?
because the initial play was the throw and then the play continued. So once he went bats the bag, I'm assuming it's no longer the initial throw.
Correct. So that initial throw has to retire the runner. Once the fielder makes a second attempt at a tag, the initial throw is done. So at that point, okay, he catches it, safe, time, interference. And as a plate umpire, you really have to own this. because you're the only one that knows the interference happened, because the base umpire is turning with and focusing on their play. So we have to signal the infraction. That's verbalize the infraction. That's interference, right? And we have to point to the batter. If we do this, we're telling everybody catcher. This is catcher. This is batter. So point to the batter. So then we have an initial throw. So if he's not retired on the initial throw, time, batter's out, and runner returns to whatever base they've last occupied at time of pitch. So what happens if the batter's out on strikes? So we have a swinging strike, and then we interfere with the throw of this runner stealing second base.
You've got a double play.
You got a double play. Why?
Runner's out as well. Batter's out on strikes. The front runner would be out on the interference by the batter.
So the runner they're attempting to make a play on would be out in high school. The batter can't be out twice, and there has to be a penalty for the interference. The batter being out is a result of the baseball play being 3 strikes. The runner is out because there has to be a penalty for the interference. The penalty for interference is an out, and you have to get that second out. Okay. We already talked about overslide, so that's awesome. We're good there. We talked a little bit about the penalty. The batter is always out in every level, with the exception of like 2 things. Number 1, NFHS. Batter's out unless, with less than 2 outs, R3 is attempting to score, is retired. So R3 steals, the batter interferes, R3 is out. That is your penalty for interference. If R3 is safe, we are going to call time, signal and verbalize the interference, point to R3 and rule them out, because that hurts them the most. It's weird. It feels unnatural, but we are going to simply acknowledge the interference if R3 is retired. If an attempt to retire at any other base is unsuccessful, the batter is out and the runner returns. If that runner is retired, so let's say we back pick at first base, or we back pick at third. Well, that runner's retired. We simply ignore the interference. We acknowledge it. We say that it happened. There's no penalty for it because it did not hinder their ability to make a play. Or the batter's called out on strikes. Then we have to have a secondary. We have to have an out for the interference, which would be the runner they're attempting to make a play on. Does that make sense? What questions can I answer there? The NFHS rule is really confusing. I think the OBR rule for this really simplifies it. But simply think, was there interference? We have to have an out for interference. What out is going to matter most? If that out is the runner they're attempting to retire, no harm, no foul. The batter stays at bat. If that runner's not retired, the batter's out because they're guilty of the interference, and the runner goes back because we're not going to allow them to gain second base or third base because of an illegal action by the batter. Every other level, the batter's out. OBR is the same, where you can get R3 if they're stealing. They would be out. Okay. So let's watch a play here. Hopefully this works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, so he's 0 for 4. No sacks, no E's, no bunt hits for Brady Council today. The runner goes, pitch swung and a missed. Throw to second is not going to be in time. Stolen base for Jurgella, his 3rd in as many attempts this year.
And they're sending him back to first.
There's a foul tip on the
I believe
swing,
that is the
perhaps.
case. Yes.
Oh, are they going to say
They're going to say interference.
So R1 was ruled safe
Okay.
at second, so the batter has to be out and the runner goes back.
Council's out. Jurgella has to go back to first. And here comes John Anderson. Let's take another look here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jurgella was out in front of the plate. Did he impede?
Got called right away by
It did
Connor
get,
Singeisen.
It got called instantly. Ed Service is making his way out to near the.
Okay. So if we go back, see how far back can we go? We're gonna go after this.
Let's take another look here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our
it's
batter
over.
leaves the box.
Take another look here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, when it doesn't work quite the way it's supposed to.
So Connor, as soon as you saw him step on the plate, that was just an easy call for you, correct?
Yeah, well, look at where our catcher is on this, right?
Mhm.
Pretty much anytime they leave the box, they're going to hinder the catcher's ability to make a throw.
I completely agree. I used to catch, and they used to tell me when you throw to second, you're stepping right on the plate as you throw.
Contact makes it a lot easier,
Mm-hmm.
a lot easier to defend. But look at this. Look at where the catcher's at in relation to the batter. The batter's clearly in his line. His throwing
Oh
lane.
yeah, easily. But I was asking if as soon as you saw him step on the plate, did you know to go get it?
It was a red flag.
Okay, yep, that's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Because if the catcher doesn't do anything, I may not have interference. Catcher did not make
Sure.
did not make an attempt to retire a runner, or did not attempt
That's
to play
a good
on a runner.
point.
Right? The
Okay.
catcher just catches and stands up. I'm not going to go dig this out because what did he stop from happening? Right? And the coach is going, especially at the high school level, they're going to say, well, the reason my catcher didn't try to make a throw is because the guy was standing on the plate. And we have to really umpire. That's the 3%, right? That's where we're needed as umpires to determine, was the catcher attempting to make a throw and then realize the batter was there and did not at the high school level? Or was the catcher not interested in trying to make a guy gets a great jump? No matter what happens, he's going to be safe. Catcher doesn't even attempt to throw. Coach, he has to do something that makes me think he's attempting to make a play on that runner. No part of his actions made me think he was attempting to make a play.
And that makes sense. And you're so lucky at this level because they'll look at the replay and see you got it right. But we don't have a replay in high school.
Yeah, you
Well-
do. Somebody's always recording it. But
That's true. Someone's always
And
recording it, but they're not
this
going
is
to see it right away in the
This is not
dugout.
reviewable.
Oh, that's true.
So
But Jay, this is where it's big to have that rule book terminology, the hinder or impede the catcher's ability to throw. Because the offensive coach, first time you call this in a high school game, because they don't know, the high school coaches don't always know the rules very well. Happened to me last year, the first time I called it all spring. Guy comes out of the third base coach's box, just on hair on fire. Want to know what's he supposed to do? All he did was swing at that pitch that was low and away. Yeah, coach, you're right. He did, but he hindered and impeded the catcher's ability to throw that baseball. That's why he's out.
Nice. Okay. Thank you, Jace.
and if you look at this, right, where are they at? Their feet are tangled. Do I think this guy short stepped this throw because he's in the way? Absolutely. Right? We missed half the catcher because the batter's standing in the way. Now, if that runner is retired, right? So I signal the infraction, point at the batter. That's interference. And once my partner does this, time. He's out. Interference. He goes back to first base. And you have to own this as a plate umpire. And it's your play to umpire. You have to penalize accordingly and direct people where to go because of the infraction. Does that make sense? In high school, we don't have to have a
Good
throw.
sense. Yep.
Perfect. So, what other things in high school on this play, right? If he, and we're going to talk about this here in a
Jagella
second,
was
but
out in front of the plate.
we're just going to jump ahead to follow through interference. That's what I was going to talk about anyways. So, OBR, follow through interference is when the momentum of a batter's swing carries the bat around and contacts the catcher or his equipment. This is backswing interference. Okay, so this is the difference between FHS and OBR. The ball is dead and runners, if moving, must return. There is no penalty as long as it is not deemed intentional. Okay. Now, if it hits the catcher and the catcher retires the runner, we've got nothing. We note it when we move on. We're still going to point That's backswing in summer baseball, because this in NFHS rule sets is an out. So that's all high school baseball, and then 16U Class A baseball plays by high school rules. This would be an out. And we're going to show some videos where it becomes an out for both rule sets. But if it's Legion or amateur, it's simply time, you go back, you stay here. The result of the pitch is the result of the pitch. In NFHS, the batter is out for follow through or backswing for follow through interference. It's why verbiage is important, because they're going to confuse the two. And which is why we as umpires have to know backswing interference in high school is different than backswing interference in every other rule set. Backswing interference in high school is when I go to set up for the pitch as a batter, and in bringing my bat up, I contact the catcher. That's time. Everybody reset, put the ball in play. Follow through interference in high school is in the forward motion of the swing. Our bat carries around and contacts the catcher when they're attempting to make a play. In OBR, it depends on if it's a pitch or a batted ball. And we're going to get into those here in a second. And there's a play where it matters, right? So on a pitched ball, it's going to be delayed. We're going to allow the catcher to make an attempt to retire the runner. And we have to ask ourselves the question, was the runner retired in the initial throw? So we're still going to point, that's backswing interference, or that's follow through interference in high school, and let the play finish. If the runner's retired, we just acknowledge it. Yep, he interfered, but he's still out, so he stays at the bat. He stays at bat, unless it's strike three. If no, the runner wasn't retired on the initial throw, time, you go back, or time, that's follow through interference. You go back to whatever basically you occupied at time and pitch, and the batter's out. In OBR, it's simply time, you go back. That's it. Is that clear? It's confusing because we use different terminology. We use the same terminology to mean different things in different rule sets, which is why we have to know definitions like the back of our hand as umpires. Because a coach can say, well, that's backswing interference. No, coach, that's follow through interference, which has a specific definition and penalty in the high school rule set. It's backswing interference in the summer, to which the only penalty is a runner returns. A lot of these guys that coach high school baseball, coach Legion baseball. They're going to get confused because it is confusing. It's convoluted. Why would we use one term one way in one rule set and then use it differently in a rule set that's derived from the other one? NFHS rules are derived from OBR, but we have a different phrase for backswing interference and a different phrase for what backswing interference means according to OBR. So know your definitions. It makes your life so much easier. So this is pitched ball type 2. When would a batter be out for follow through interference in OBR or backswing interference in OBR? Okay, so we're always out on follow through interference at the high school level.
Much as pitching and offense.
Goes, swings, it's a foul tip, or is it not? Always called out.
And there's the curveball again. Bounce in front of the plate. The hitter, it looks like you're higher, the pitcher is higher up. It's like a much.
So who thinks this batter should be out? The high school level, it's automatic, right? We contacted the catcher. In OBR, or American Legion rules, we're going to have an out because this is strike 3 to drop their uncaught third strike. And that batter hits the catcher, preventing the catcher from making a play on that ball, from retiring the batter runner. So we are kind of getting into the whole batter versus batter runner interference conversation, which I think we're going to have in 2 weeks. But because our follow through interfere with the catcher's ability to field the ball cleanly, we have an out in this scenario because the batter runner is not out. What if there's a runner on first in this scenario? Would we have follow-through interference on this? Or backswing interference? Or an out? We have one out, runner on first, swing strike 3.
No.
It'd just be a strike 3.
The batter's out, right? The batter's out because first is occupied. So the only way we'd have any sort of, we still probably would call this follow-through or backswing interference at this level, because we don't want that runner taking off when he realizes the catcher didn't catch the ball cleanly. Because it's not like it's a glancing blow, right? We watched the video. Our catcher is clearly not able to make a play. He got hit in the head. In the back of the head. There's no way he's throwing out a runner on second from this position with a contact like that. So we might as well just time. That's backswing interference. You're out on strike 3. You stay at first base. And if we adjudicate this and we jump out of our shoes and make it known that we have something weird, we're very much, hey, no, I have time. Everybody look at me right now. I'm about to do something that makes sense if you pay attention. And we're going to adjudicate that play. In high school, we would have an out if the runner's stealing. In high school, with no runners on, we would just say, time, that's a swinging strike. The batter wouldn't be out on that because there's no ability to make an attempted play. If there's a runner on first and this happens, and the runner on first just stands there or goes back to first base, is there an ability for that catcher to make a play on that runner? No, because he's not going anywhere. He's retreating back to his base. So that's simply time reset. Remember, to interfere, we have to hinder the catcher's ability to make a play on a runner. So we can't just be like, oh, he hit him, time, that you're out, right? We have to have a runner attempting to advance, or a back pick, or a pickoff for that to happen. Questions on any of that? All right.
Foul tip, or is it not? Always called out.
So we have a batted ball and follow-through interference. So on a batted ball, we have follow-through interference. We are going to have an out in every rule set, provided it's not a home run ball, right? We had a deep fly ball, different story. I really like this play, so thanks Alan for sending it. It made me think about it for a second. And this guy's all over it. So we have a batted ball that stays in the vicinity of the home plate area. Because remember, he touched the catcher, so the catcher's the only one that can be interfered with on this. If he touches the catcher and it's a fly ball to left field, it doesn't matter. But if you watch, I think this slow-mo shows it. This is a pop-up to the catcher. Where's the catcher's glove? So we have a batted ball where a catcher is probably the one that's going to make a play on this. Realistically, right? The catcher should be making a play on this ball. Our follow-through of our swing, or our backswing in OBR, or our follow-through in NFHS, interferes with the catcher's ability to make this play because, as you notice, the catcher's glove is in his right hand. It got knocked off by the bat because he got hit so hard on the follow-through. He can't make a play. He's probably not making a play barehanded. And on this, he doesn't even make an attempt to make a play because he's shaking his hand because he got hit. So that's when we would have an out on a batted ball. Or if it is a chopped, like a bunt, or a ball is chopped out in front of the home plate and dies, right? And the catcher's the only one that's going to make a play on that ball, then we can have interference by the batter for a follow through. But if he smokes it to short and his follow through hits the catcher, is the catcher making a play on that ball? I hope not.
So Connor, let me ask you this. What if the next immediate play is to the catcher? So infield's draw it in, they're gonna throw it to home, follow through a backswing interference cause the catcher to be out of the play. Are you gonna get that same out on the batter?
Where was the initial throw made?
So I got the initial throw coming to home. So the infield's in, trying to retire R3.
That's a great question. We go back to our definition, which I go through. This is why definitions matter. Interfere with the catcher's fielding or throwing. NFHS level, fielding or throwing. So fielding would be fielding what? I would argue that when they refer to fielding is a batted ball, not a thrown ball. So you wouldn't have batter interference, but could you have traditional interference? And I don't know. That's tough, right? That's a tough thing to think about. Runner on third, ball hit to third base, who throws it home, catcher doesn't have a glove because of the follow-through interference. I would say you could probably make a really good case either way if you know the rule set. But what the correct answer would be is a great question. So I guess
that
it
play
depends
happened
on
in Florida last week. I couldn't get
What'd
the
you have?
video on it. I wasn't on the game. I was watching it. Fortunately, the
Okay.
catcher got back up and caught the ball and made the play, which I couldn't believe he got back up. He got hit in the helmet, but and then they end up dumping the catcher for being really stupid after the play. But it just led to a really good discussion in the locker room afterwards. Is what if he can't make that play because it's not a fielded ball, on the initial play type of thing. But I think you got to come up and get an out for offensive interference. But then who are you going to punish? And what, what at OBR and FHS? Probably getting R3 at the high school level.
Yeah, and I mean, that's tough because it definitely makes you have to umpire, right? Should there be an out on that? Yeah, there should be. But if our definition, and I'm going to pull up the definition that I have from the actual rule book because it doesn't specify if it's fielding a batted or thrown ball.
I would say in OBR, you're going to get offensive interference and get the batter. I talked to a guy that works AA, and he says, absolutely, we're going to get offensive interference in OBR. And NFHS, I don't know what you'd have there. That'd be a little bit tougher.
I think I am probably going to get the batter. Well, I guess it depends on how many outs there are.
Because in
I think
NFHS, you penalize if there's less than 2 outs,
it's R3.
right? R3, you're going to penalize the closest guy to home plate. And then
Because R3 is it if R3 is advancing, in this case they are.
Yeah.
Less than 2 outs, I'm gonna get the batter out.
Yep.
I don't. So it gets really tricky, right? Because it's interference by the batter, not the batter runner. That's a great. I wish we had video on that because that'd be awesome. That's a great point for this that I didn't even consider because I've never seen that happen. I think you get R3 in high school because they're to advance, and the batter runner would go to first because they have a fair batted ball. because they can't come back to bat. And you can't guarantee that there would have been a double play, so you can't get 2 outs. I think in any case, on this type of play, man, that's tough, Alan. I think at the high school level on this type of play, I'm going to get R3 out, and I'm going to put batter runner on first. No matter what, no matter how many outs.
Yeah, I would
because they interfered with the play. The batter runner interfered with the play on R3.
agree.
It's a fair batted ball. So if I'm the batter, I might say, yeah, we're gonna get 2 outs here, and I'm gonna look at him and say, Coach, you really think he's gonna make it to first where he throws it? And Coach is gonna say, well, what if he makes a wild throw? Well, if it's me, I'm going, you still think he'd make it? The right fielder wouldn't throw him out, but I'm slow. So I think on this, in this specific scenario that Alan's talking about, we have follow through interference in high school. With less than 2 outs, the batter's going to be out, and R3 is going to go back to third. So I'm going to retract my previous statement because there is a specific penalty for this. And I'm going to be able to support it by rule if I say, hey, the penalty on page 48 says that when there are 2 outs, the batter's out. With less than 2 outs and R3 is safe, we're going to call time and rule R3 out. But that's, I mean, that's where you really got to umpire, and you got to be able to talk to coaches. Because the offensive coach isn't going to like it. The R3 that their runner's not going to score or be in scoring position. And the defensive coach isn't going to like the fact that you're going to put the batter on first base. And you're going to hear it from both sides. So be ready. Because there is a caveat to the penalty that says but it says if the pitch is a third strike and interference prevents a possible double play. So not or, it's and, which means that we have to be out on a swinging strike 3, and then we also could have thrown the guy out at third base. We can't have 2 outs in this situation. So you're going to hear it from both sides. Luckily, the defense coach is going to be like, well, we have 1 out and we have a double play in order. And he can live with that, hopefully. But it's going to take a lot of explaining and a lot of time. And I think that on this play, I'm going to go time. That's interference. Point to the runner, say, you stand still. Point to the batter, you go to first base. And then I'm going to say, Alan, come here. I need to talk. And we're going to go through it.
Yeah.
And come up on the same page. And then I'm going to go to the offensive coach because they're going to be the most upset about what's happening. And say, listen, the batter committed fall through interference. By rule, with R3 advancing, R3 is out. Since it was a fair batted ball, the batter is going to get first base. And he's going to be mad. Why can't my batter be out and the guy go back to third? Well, coach, because he was advancing. And you're going to have to just say, okay, we're good there. And then I'm going to go to the defensive coach. I'm also going to say the batter's going to first without gesturing towards first base. Because the moment I point to the batter and then point to first base, the defensive coach is going to come unglued because he thinks we're going to be calling obstruction. Okay? So I'm just going to tell the coach, offense coach, hey, batter committed fall through interference. R3 was trying to score. By rule, R3 is going to be out, and your batter's going to get first base because it's a fair batted ball. And then I'm going to stand there and listen to him talking and say, okay, I understand, but that's what the rule says. Then I'm going to go to the defensive coach, and I'm going to say, hey, listen, the batter committed follow-through interference. The ball was fair. R3 was advancing to home, so R3 is going to be out. And you're not going to like it, but the batter runner is going to be on first base because we don't know what would have happened. Other than the fact that it was a fair batted ball. And the rule book says I cannot get 2 outs here. And I might just say, hey, listen, coach, R3 is going to be out because we had the batter runner or the batter commit follow-through interference, and he was advancing. The rule book says I cannot get 2 outs here. So the batter runner has to go somewhere. So he's going to first base. And that just has to be what it is. And the coach is not going to be happy, and you're just going to stand there and listen to him. Say, okay, coach, I told you what we're doing by rule. You had your say. Now you're repeating yourself. So we're going to go back to playing baseball. And Alan may be of a different opinion. Jason may be of a different opinion. But I don't like to ask coaches questions that should be a directive, which is why I say not, and I would like to go playing baseball. Not, will you let us go back to playing baseball? It's, and we are going back to playing baseball, or we are resuming the game. Because then it's final, right? When somebody says we are doing this, it's not up for discussion. And everybody understands that that's a directive, not a request. There are many times when I will request something from my coach. But in this instance, if I don't request, or if I request, he's going to want to argue. Whereas if I say, we are going to go back to playing baseball, it's essentially warning without warning. It's saying, hey, we're done. We're going to go do this. And then I'm going to walk away. And he comes back after me. Then I'm like, coach, this is your warning. We have to play baseball now. And then I can hopefully cue them in with the, we're going to go back and play baseball, to it's time to move on. Brad, what was your question? It's strike 2, R3 is out, and the batter's still at bat.
Yeah, if you've got the same scenario, but
Yes.
it's strike 2 and not
Yes.
strike 3.
So the scenario we were talking about was a batted ball with R3 stealing. On this one, if it's strike 2, this play up here, if we have follow through in high school, the batter's out, everybody goes back, regardless of how many strikes there is. Because there's a runner stealing. I'm sorry, not on this play in the video. What are you questioning? So if it's strike 2, explain a little bit more, would you please?
Yeah, it was just a question of if it's strike 2, a swing and a miss, but his follow through hits the catcher. So then we're going to have the batter out. And even though R3 was stealing home, he still goes back to third base.
No.
And the batter's out.
No. So if R3 is stealing home, and we have backswing or follow through interference, by the batter into high school level. So R3 steals home. It's strike 2. R3 is going to be out because they're attempting to advance and not retired.
And the batter stays at bat.
Batter would stay at bat, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.